Aloha. Welcome to Think Tech Hawaii. We're broadcasting live from Pioneer Plaza in the heart of downtown Honolulu. My name is Lindsea Wilbur, and I'm your host today on The Millennial Entrepreneur. As we ask the question, what are these young people really doing in Hawaii? There's a lot of talk about something called brain drain, which means that young people are leaving because they don't see opportunity or they don't really want to stay for whatever reason. And they leave this island paradise to go seek finer pastures on the mainland or in other places. So today we have with us Brittney Taamu Miyashiro, who is the shopkeeper at Hawaii's first co-working space, Box Jelly, in the heart of Kaka'ako. And she is maybe an endangered species here in Hawaii, a young person who came back after going to Hanover College and graduated in 2012. It's about a year since you've been back, Brittney, and can you tell us a little bit about, that experience?
Yeah, I came back in last December. After graduation, I kind of wanted to see what was in a small little Indiana town that was right next to our college. Realized, I guess, that I kind of missed home. My grandparents are getting older too, so I wanted to come back. And all of the interests and sort of passions I developed my senior year, I thought if I really wanted it to be sort of an organic experience, I would need to start, where I grew up.
Oh, that's fascinating. So what are those passions exactly?
Well, my senior year, I got really interested in how people interact with their environment, whether that is physically or socially or virtually. And there's just a lot of different things, like especially with placemaking and different, like urban development is a huge topic that's going on right now. And living in different places, urban areas like Philly, I think I realized that in seeing all of these sort of new, cool, interesting things that people were doing, I kept thinking, oh, we could really use that at home, or, oh, that'd be really cool if we were back home. But why can't it be, right?
Right, exactly. So you were exploring, these different cities and like recognizing sort of this rising phenomena of these co-working spaces, of, like you said, placemaking efforts, different ways for humans to interact in a city or in a built environment, and you wanted to test that out here, that sort of thing?
Yeah, and just our culture is a little different, and why is that? And I think geography is really interesting. I think someone on the mainland pointed out to me that we're the most isolated populated landmass in the world, and I didn't really realize that until leaving. And from that point, I started to question, I guess, how different environmental factors affect the way we interact with each other, but also understand ourselves, and what sort of place then we make because of all of that.
Yeah, absolutely. And in these modern days with the internet and ubiquitous technology, we're connected to the world. So if I'm here, I can go online and see these really cool things that are happening in other cities too. Like Free Space in San Francisco, or lots of different types of examples of different ways that people are having fun in their cities, but also taking sort of a civic-minded approach in wanting to build community. And we see a little bit of that here. And is that what drew you to Kaka'ako? Because of the co-working space and the sort of art culture renaissance that's going on?
It's sort of funny how I ended up back in Kaka'ako at Box Jelly. I was out promoting a show for Jet Setter Production one night and ran into these people.
What is Jet Setter Production?
They are a music event production company. That's starting out in Honolulu with Joe Gogo. He's really active in Chinatown and really tries to bring like a quality music to our local scenes. But I was doing some promotional work for them and ran into these people that ended up all being co-workers, or they all co-worked together. And I realized that I had been to Box Jelly a couple of years back, about 2 years ago when they first started, through my mentor. And I realized that I had met the founder already, and we started talking about, I guess, what my interests were, especially with place and people. And he thought it would be an interesting opportunity to be part of Buck's Chili. So
Yeah,
that's how I went back up, back up there.
Yeah, interesting. And, it's so true because what you're saying is that, we see these examples of stuff going on in other cities, but because of, the place and the people, that always makes it local. So it's always different because it's always a different place where, this experience is occurring, so to speak.
Mm-hmm.
And so, of course, there's going to be different ways to kind of build community or to, do things like co-working spaces or, invigorate the music scene like your friend was doing. And that's going to be different for every place. And it's not something that you can sort of, take from one place and apply to another and have it work. Especially in a place like Hawaii, which is very, very unique and different and isolated, like you said. So, as it's been a slower development, I think, a lot of what we're seeing, right?
Yeah.
Because you've been here for a while, too. You know what's up. You went to high school here, so we've been here for a
everyone says
bit.
we're slow all the time. Hawaii is so slow. The pace of life is so slow. And I think, maybe it's slow, but I think the key thing is it's just different. Considering different factors that might play in that other places don't have to worry about or just aren't occurring. If you consider those factors, then maybe development is just as fast.
Yeah. So what's something that you found unique about Hawaii, I guess?
I think how much we are still, how much we still value, I think, family. That comes up first. And also history. I think a lot of things happen in recent history that are still, people still feel very strongly about and are still impacted by, and that we, even as millennials, still feel as far as maybe why certain things aren't developing. But I think that is sort of unique.
I mean, people are still alive that remember Hawaii when it wasn't a state, even.
Yeah.
And it definitely has its own blend of culture that is certainly different from other cities. And maybe means that, we have different economies than other places, too, and, different... yeah.
Tourism is a unique one. I think one that we sort of use as a crutch, and sort of take for granted, one is everyone not going to want to come to Hawaii. But I think that's sort of been built-in assumptions that tourism is such a safe sort of bet for us, or it's what we're best at, when there could be so much more.
Yeah, absolutely. And maybe it's even something that, we can become better at, better arbiters of this unique culture.
Exactly.
Rather than, perpetuating sort of a, plasticine myth of hula dancers naked on the beach.
Yeah, because then are people really coming to Hawaii then? Or this sort of fabrication of what other people think Hawaii is?
Definitely. And as a young millennial going to school on the mainland, I remember being the only one from Hawaii in many social settings, and looking at what's going on around me and realizing that my perspective is vastly different from a lot of these people who grew up in California or who grew up on the East Coast or something. And we're having very different experiences.
Yeah, I guess I didn't realize how valuable that is too, or that was even there for me as far as valuing your history and your culture, and also just knowing where you come from too. So a lot of people don't, I guess, identify with that and look in awe that we're so closely tied to that.
Yeah, absolutely. There is such an awe that you get being here. It's pretty miraculous to look at the sun rising over the ko'olaus, or paddling out for a sunset surf session right in front of Waikiki, and
we can just jump in the water, so to say, at the beach, or go hiking and all of that stuff.
And those are things that we've had, or people living in these islands, or on these islands, they've been doing those pastimes, you know, since time immemorial, since people arrived first on
That's
this.
how people got here, right? Was by canoe. So.
Yeah, by canoe. But then, you know, the pastimes of enjoying nature here have been central to our culture for a very long time. And certainly the natural beauty is something that a lot of other cities don't have. You know, environmental, like this love and appreciation for environment.
That appreciation is something I took for granted as well, sort of being raised with that awareness, like environmental awareness and that sort of identification with your land and with your environment. Because a lot of, you know, problems or issues, especially with sustainability, and when you're trying to rearrange your lifestyle for it to become such, it's actually comparatively to like friends on the mainland, for example, it's been a lot easier of a transition for me, or different understandings have been a lot easier to comprehend because of that.
Yeah, that's interesting. And I like how you use the quotations around sustainability, because it is such a, you know, vague word, because when you bring it down to the experiential level, like what am I actually going to do every day that allows me to live sustainably? That's where you're like, well, you know, that's kind of where you hit the wall, and you have like these habits and...
Exactly. I'll do tomorrow, or oh, it's not that big a deal. Like, but all of it doesn't matter.
Yeah, exactly. But you know, I think all of these factors play into what it means to be a young person from Hawaii, and I think that, you know, in coming back, there's a lot of things to consider. Certainly, culture, environment. Job. That's what I was gonna get to. You know, what are we gonna do for money? Because there's kind of a high cost of living here. Even so, Governor Abercrombie, you know, recently this January, he raised the minimum wage from $7.25 to $8.50. You know, sort of implicitly acknowledging this high cost of living here, the cost of paradise, one might say. Uhiro, the economic group out of UH, called it that in an article they wrote, the cost of paradise.
I love Uhiro, especially their dashboard project.
Yeah, go check out Uhiro, Google it, UHERO. They're awesome. Anyways, yeah, so they tell us a lot about, you know, the economics of day-to-day living. And well, what they tell us is that it's difficult. So you work at Box Jelly now, and you see a lot of young people starting businesses and who are working there. Like, what kind of scene is it? Like, what does it feel like?
It feels like everyone is building something, including Box Jelly, because it's not here, like in Hawaii or like anywhere, as far as startups go. But for Box Jelly, building the whole entrepreneurial environment and ecosystem for Honolulu, for Hawaii too. Yeah, that's something that has to, I think, be developed more, and something that they're really passionate about doing, and why I aligned with Box Jelly and sort of jumped on board. But yeah, I think we're at the stage now where I think it's awesome that we have that opportunity to create, but at the same time, I still struggle with this. I can't be upset that it's not already built, because, you know, that's what we're here for, I feel like.
Yeah, so I think that's you know, something that we can all relate to, Brittney, is the, you know, seeing the opportunity in the challenge. So we'll hear a little bit more about that after our break. My name is Lindsea K. Wilbur. We're here on The Millennial Entrepreneur, broadcasting this afternoon from Pioneer Plaza on Think Tech Hawaii. We'll be right back and hear more from Britney Taamu Miyashiro about co-working spaces in Hawaii.
We want to thank our underwriters. Hawaiian Electric Company and its affiliates Maui Electric on Maui and Hawaii Electric Light Company on Hawaii Island are deeply committed to the communities they serve. Galen Ho is a senior executive of BAE Systems, a global defense, security, and aerospace company. The High Tech Development Corporation, the state's leading technology agency, attached to the Department of Business, Economic Development, and Tourism.
Castle and Cook Hawaii, with a time-honored legacy that spans more than 160 years and revolves around its mission of investing in Hawaii, creating communities, and providing for the needs of our state.
Hawaii Gas, formerly the gas company, a proponent of the Liquefied Natural Gas Initiative, helping Hawaii achieve its transition to clean energy and a better energy future.
Collateral Analytics, a Hawaii-based tech company empowering the real estate industry with greater and faster access to the tools and data they need to make better informed property investment decisions.
I'm Nicole Horry. Thanks so much for joining us on Think Tech.
I'm Maria Kashem. See you next time.
Aloha, welcome back to The Millennial Entrepreneur with Britney, Taamu Miyashiro, talking about co-working spaces in Hawaii. And we're here at Think Tech Hawaii, Pioneer Plaza. This is where the action's at. So Britney, tell us more about, so you were just saying how you really feel like you're building something with Box Jelly, Hawaii's first co-working space. And but you feel you are at a moment, and we all are sort of at this moment where, there's an opportunity to really build something interesting here. And, that is something that is evolving right now and certainly not exactly established. It's something that we're all working together to do. And, you've traveled around, like you were saying, you've lived in other cities, been to other cities. What are you seeing over there and in other places that you kind of were drawn to?
I think seeing other builders, so to say, and people building things, because
Builders, I like that.
Yeah.
Building, community, building everything.
Yeah.
Building anything, yeah.
Physically building, like, your space, too.
Yeah, true, physically building your space.
Sweat equity, I think is what it's called. But yeah, this summer I kind of went back to school for a summer program in social innovation, and along the way I thought I'd visit different co-working spaces just to see what's up. That's what's really nice about the industry right now. Everyone's very open and very willing to share ideas, because I think they realize that we're on this cusp of a paradigm shift, a really big one, in redefining how we work, because how you work is really closely tied with how you identify with yourself.
And how you live. Yeah.
Exactly, and how you live. So I was just also wanting to make the most of my mainland trip. So visiting these cities, there's already over 500 co-working spaces in North America alone, and there's only one in Hawaii as of now.
Right.
Yeah, there were a couple before and some coming soon, but I was wondering, why that is and what else is out there. So I headed up in Indianapolis, and then Philadelphia and New York. That's sort of where the first ones got started. I also got into Pittsburgh as a random stop.
Pittsburgh is awesome. I stopped there on the Millennial Trains project this past summer too. There's a lot going on there actually with co-working spaces.
Is.
Yeah.
It's like sort of the underdog of the East Coast, even more so than Philly in certain aspects.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, there was a place called Startup Town there, and it was really. Have you visited?
I went to Startup Town.
No way.
Yeah, it was awesome. So yeah, what did you think of it?
I thought it was really great. That it was really the initiative of just one guy thinking that this building isn't being utilized, and why don't we do something with it? Apparently, about a decade ago, the mayor then had set aside money specifically for social innovation, and got all of these special zoning codes coordinated so that if you do have a space within that zone, you can be supplemented by the city.
So it's almost a social innovation zone, you would say?
Yeah, it seemed like it for Uptown, because it is a more impoverished and sort of hostile area, and how can the city make it better? So yeah, they started with that zoning, and then Startup Town came in, and I mean, when it was sort of funding, their interns could get paid so that they could have all of this other work done, and they were sustained. I thought that's really cool. But Startup Town was one of the places. Where else?
And just out of curiosity, when you get into zoning stuff, and when you're trying to define things in order to give people money for it, you really have to be specific. And I'm wondering, did you talk to anybody about how they defined social innovation exactly?
It's really make ways to implement social change, which is what Uptown needed from our discussion. It's just always been sort of a risky area to be. Not much industry there, poor neighborhoods, and just became like sort of unsafe. That typical like American city decline.
The armpit of cities, which actually Chicago definitely once was /
Yeah, and now of course it's going through that upswing, right? But sorry, what were we talking about?
We were talking about Pittsburgh and all the other different co-working spaces.
Oh, yeah. So, I mean, I didn't get to spend too much time there because I was actually on a layover for a Greyhound. It was like a 5-hour layover.
Right on. So you got to all the cities via Greyhound bus?
Oh, no, it was like plane, not train, unfortunately. And then I was going back to Indiana from the East Coast for a wedding. Got laid over, and I think that's kind of speaking again to the whole sort of open source culture of the industry. It's people are really willing to just invite me in and say like, hey, this is what we're doing here, and that's exactly what happened. I got laid over, I called up Startup Town, and they're like, sure, come by. We can talk shop.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
And what other cities, you were talking about Philadelphia and New York, where you said a lot of momentum was built by some of the first co-working spaces, or the pioneers.
Yeah.
What was that like? What kind of stuff, where did you go when you were there?
I think in a way it was kind of humbling too, to visit New York City and Indie Hall for Independence Hall, sort of like the independent worker, play on those words. Those two spaces were some of the first co-working spaces, and that's where I think when you go back to the source of the idea, where what was humbling about it, I think it wasn't just like either a trend or something cool, or oh, how could we start something new. It was fulfilling like a basic need, and seeing what their need was and kind of comparing it to what our need is here was interesting. They had really different ideas as far as how they use their space, how they design their space, what space even means to them.
What does space mean to them?
Well, with the shared space, for example, what caught me off guard was at Indie Hall, we were talking about lockers and how one of the founders just didn't like the idea of lockers. And I was like, oh, why? It's totally useful, you know, I'm commuting, there's a lot of stuff I gotta carry, there's lockers. And he's like, well, when you create lockers, it's like creating a privatization of space. And I was like, oh, good point. I think everything is with a purpose in what they do. And so living that mindfully, I think is something, you know, that I'm still trying to do more, and realizing that, you know, there are people that are doing so at like a really big level.
So you mean, like kind of thinking about it on this higher level of like what kind of culture are we building here in this space?
I think that's something maybe we could do more, and something that I think might have been a frustration for me as a millennial, wanting to cry out like, are you even thinking about what this is going to mean? Like, because I'm going to have to pay for this a couple years from now.
Well, I mean, they're putting a new, oh my gosh, Popeye's chicken on Kapahulu, and there's a KFC already down the street, and I'm like, no, this space, like that's a huge space that was under construction for so long. And I mean, I know that I'm just venting right now, but I'm like, I was thinking that space could be used for something really cool. But instead, it's being used for a Popeye's chicken. And why is that? I mean, do we really
I guess
need
that's
that
what
much
happens
chicken?
when like money talks. Because if we're talking about like concepts like placemaking, for example, where it's more democratized process of what a place is going to be, I think that's a little one of the challenges that we were talking about, sort of getting people to see beyond just how we've conceptualized things for so many years, so many generations even. You know, why is there going to be a Popeyes? Anybody, besides that they can pay rent?
Right. Exactly. But that's also interesting too about there was a time when actually the weekend was invented as a thing. And it was to make the workers, I mean, I think Ford, it was as late as like the 1920s when Ford began giving his workers 2 full day weekend. And, before it had only been like a 1 day weekend or something like that. And sort of this, of course, America at the time set really the standard for the week. But then, with the global economy, there's, constant competition and time is money and all of this sort of thing. So there's like this external pressure of, what it means to work and, what kind of existence are we actually having? Because, with the cost of living as high as Hawaii and, people really struggling across the nation, most of the time you're working a large majority of your day. Because you need the money. And so what kind of place is that going to be like? Is that going to be something that enhances your well-being or decreases your well-being? Enhances your social relationships and your feeling of connections with others, or decreases that? And we can really make these decisions in the design element of, designing these spaces, what they look like, what's going where. And I really love that idea of having sort of social innovation zones or different zones in a city. And that's really, like you said, Popeye's paying rent, that zone, that's a commercial zoning. It really kind of boils down to that when you kind of look at how a city is made, and that's a big part of it as well, the zoning. I think you're asking some really good questions, Brittney. So you told me about the founders in New York and Philadelphia, and then what about in Indiana? What about that small town over there? Or other places?
Well, Madison is a really small town.
Madison, Indiana?
Yeah, and so there's not much co-working there. Not typical co-working spaces, I guess. It's a classic Americana kind of town, small town. But Indianapolis is, I guess, another thing too, sort of coming from Hawaii to the Midwest. I did so because it was, the best sort of financial aid deal for me, and I wanted something different. But I really just didn't think much of the Midwest. I'm pretty sure, like most people on the east and west coast of the U.S. But there's a lot going on. It's geographically for the continental U.S. It's central. All of our train lines cross through there. The roads through America. Everything. It's sort of like a cross point. Besides being the heartland. And in Indianapolis, I think it was interesting to see, I guess, the newest sort of developments of co-working, if you will, because there's stuff happening on the East Coast and the West Coast, and that's where it kind of popped up. But if you're talking about it, like in a timeline-wise, Indianapolis would be the Midwest would sort of be the most current, where that co-working sort of movement is now. And it was just really cool because there's a lot of buildings there that need to be repurposed. They're decrepit or just not being used. I shouldn't say decrepit, just not being used, or factories that have closed down. What can we do, to use them again?
For sure. Actually, when I was on the Millennial Trains project this summer, I agree entirely about having assumptions about the Midwest. Then on the train, actually going through, we went through Denver, and then Omaha, and then Pittsburgh, and then, Chicago, and then Pittsburgh.
Mm-hmm.
And Omaha, I had no idea, really. I kind of expected, I had...
Corn?
Yeah, corn. I didn't much corn. I didn't want to say it and sound stereotypical, but yeah, corn. And of course, Warren Buffett, and also, oh my gosh. Yeah, so anyways, I was wonderfully surprised because they had converted this old grain. They have, like you're saying, in Madison, they have lots of old sort of like big grain things from agriculture days, or big warehouses that aren't being used, lots of spaces, really beautiful, honestly, like sort of brick and just, I don't know, warm. It was a cool city. It was great. I'd actually love to move back.
Yeah.
I'd love to move there. Like, not move to New York City. I'll move to Omaha and be really happy there. And they had transformed this really big space into sort of almost an art gallery, but it's also a place for like philosophers and for musicians and for people who are like any kind of thing.
Place to go.
Really cool place to go and be together, exactly. And it was called Kaneko, Kaneko, Kaneko. And they were doing so much there. And I noticed, interestingly, that when you look at the coast, when you look at sort of San Francisco or New York, a lot of times in co-working spaces you have tech startups where it's very tech-based. But then in the Midwest, in Denver and also in Omaha, and actually in Pittsburgh too, and in Chicago a little bit, but less so. There's a big tech scene in Chicago, but definitely Pittsburgh, Omaha, and Denver. There was other kinds of industries that were really blossoming and blooming. Anything from like microbreweries and wineries, like urban wineries, to different kinds of like urban art and sort of urban renewal that was going on. A lot of art and physical, tangible sort of industrial stuff where you're really working with your hands. And then there's also in Pittsburgh a lot of hardware and even more of this sort of tech shop scene where people are doing some great things with like Arduinos or doing great things with like the hardware element of it, and sort of there were still people who were creating apps and doing platforms and doing whatever, other stuff. But there was also like this diversification of what it meant to sort of be, working, like thinking about what that is, or like a startup,
Well, too, that's why I feel really fortunate that we have High Capacity as a tenant. They're a makerspace, and they do a lot of things with programming and developing, but there are people in there also like physically building things, and to see that again, and sort of people taking back like life in a way, to build what would supplement their life better, and quite frankly like help others too. Instead of just having everything manufactured for you, whether that's like a physical object or like a traditional job.
Right. Yeah. Well, we're here on Pioneer Plaza, streaming live on Think Tech Hawaii. My name is Lindsea Wilbur. We're going to take a little break and come back and continue our conversation with Britney, Taamu Miyashiro, and get even deeper into this fascinating concept of brain drain in Hawaii, what it means to be a young person from Hawaii coming back here and renewing and rejuvenating this culture. So see you in a little bit.
Aloha, I'm Maria Kashem of Think Tech Hawaii, and I want to tell you about our Think Tech talk shows. If you didn't know it, Think Tech streams video and audio for all of its shows live on the internet from 2 to 5 p.m. every weekday afternoon, and we replay them all night long on Ustream.tv. Visit thinktechhawaii.com for our live stream and YouTube links. Raise your awareness on Think Tech. I'm Maria Kashem.
Aloha, I'm Jay Fidell of Think Tech. We have some news for you. In addition to our Think Tech TV show and our Asia in Review show on Olelo 54, as of January 1st, we're adding Community Matters to play also 2 hours a week. Check out thinktechhawaii.com for the specific times of each of these shows. We hope you enjoy all three. Mahalo, I'm Jay Fidell.
Welcome back to The Millennial Entrepreneur. My name is Lindsea Wilbur. We're streaming live from Pioneer Plaza in downtown Honolulu. And we have with us Britney Taamu Miyashiro, who is the shopkeeper at Box Deli, Hawaii's first co-working space, and also an avid questioner of what it means to inhabit a city, to work. What does it mean to have this experience in this place? And she has done a lot with social innovation and placemaking, and now we're going to talk a little bit about the little hacker space nestled in Box Deli and the people getting up to mischief back there. So was the high capacity makerspace always there since when you first arrived, or?
When I first did, yes, and from my understanding, the initial stages, they were there pretty much from the beginning. So one of our like original tenants, so to say, and yeah, I think there's been articles too about how much having a makerspace and a hackerspace can really supplement a co-working environment. But I think more recently, I've been coming out of my shell and seeing what they're doing back there. But there's some pretty cool stuff. I think it's just inspiring to see people doing what they want to do with their ideas.
Definitely. So what are some of the projects that you've seen back there?
There's a couple that are beyond my capacity for explanation.
That's the thing about hackerspaces is that they're filled with geniuses.
It is, and like it makes sense when we're talking, and then if I were to re-articulate it, I can't really. But a lot of like someone's in engineering and doing something with sensors right now. There's a lot of LED lights I see back there too going on, and I think the project that I and probably you will become more involved with too is the simple robot, the simple truck bot. Yeah, that'll be really cool.
Definitely. So that's a robot that it's one of those, if you go onto Instructables.com or Make Magazine, it was actually featured on Make Magazine 3 times, but it's this really cool little robot, and you can build it with pretty much stuff that you get at Radio Shack, or we also sell a kit. Really simple, and if you want to get fancy, you can like 3D print your wheels or 3D print sort of the robot body itself, but you can control it from a smartphone, and it's pretty cool. It can do a lot of stuff, and it runs on Arduino open source, so you can kind of like build on the sensors or build on whatever it is and like kind of take the robot to the next level. That started in high capacity, or it was one of the projects back there?
Yeah, one of the projects, and I sort of just stumbled in one day and asked what they were doing, and they told me, Tim. Asked Tim what he was up to, because he had all these like cardboard cut out of parts, and asked me what kind of cell phone I had, and from that just conversation, from there he started talking about robots. Also, I guess the differences too because there's a couple of truck bots out there that are really nice and fancy, but maybe why he developed his at all. And then his future plans for like biotic robots.
Robots?
Yeah, it's some really forward-thinking stuff.
Yeah, and that's what's so great about, I think, co-working spaces in general. That's what I've really cherished. I mean, I've done a little bit of dabbling in other cities, checking out co-working spaces and hacker spaces and maker spaces and everything. I'm a member of Noise Bridge in San Francisco. And the cross-pollination, just being able to, you don't know what you're going to do that day, or you kind of have something planned, but you get it done early, and then you're just milling around.
And that's like the challenge too, right? In the opportunity. Like the first couple days I was at Box Shelly, I really sometimes didn't know what to do with myself, because it's a lot of things you need to take on your own initiative, but it's also understanding the space, the community, what you're going to be doing there. I think that's one thing I didn't anticipate on being involved with so much is like the sort of the design of my job. I mean, it's really cool to think, I have so much control over what I'm going to be doing, but also then it takes that much more thinking, much more responsibility, much more like self-sacrifice.
So it's very independent. I think everybody takes that sort of startup culture, ethos of just jumping in there, doing whatever it is you can. Like working on a startup is kind of crazy. It's really fun and it's really, really, really rewarding, but it's not exactly like you kind of like punch your ticket, sit down at your cubicle and, know what you're going to do that day and then be done and, sort of go home and like hang out and watch TV or something like that. It's it's like a lifestyle or something like that.
Sort of like understanding your limits will actually really help to get past that too. Sometimes I'm like, why is it like this? And then the answer is just because I didn't do something about it yet, especially in this space. That's been different, I think, with members. You usually pay for membership when you're in a co-working space, or at least Pretty much all co-working spaces. But members not coming to the realization that they can contribute to the way things are done and the way that we operate.
That's a really
things that
interesting
are
point.
implemented. And sometimes when I do like hear, some comments or suggestions, is the next thing is like, oh, that's a good idea. How do you think we should do that?
Yeah, so you get frequently like people having great ideas, sort of like pitching it to you, but then not feeling like maybe it's their role to actually take that on and start to do it or something.
That is our job, implement
that
it.
is
But
true, yeah.
also, I think they realized they could have suggested it a lot earlier.
Okay,
because
so
we are that kind of space.
For sure.
I think just co-working spaces are, but that's different than like a co-officing is what I like to call it. I guess like business. There used to be things like business plazas or something.
Business plazas.
Is that like where
Yeah.
it was open space for people to use, but it was still like an office cubicles, certain set of rules.
This is less rules, more about having a good time. Not having a good time, but enjoying the experience. Like less rules, more
or
creativity.
how to make it the most productive for everyone.
Right, exactly, the most productive. But part of that is making you feel good, making yourself feel good in whatever way that is. Really interesting. Okay, so we're gonna take a little break. My name's Lindsea Wilbur, and I'm here with Brittney Taamu Miyashiro, who works at the Box Jelly, Hawaii's first co-working space. And we've been having great talk about the brain drain in Hawaii, what it means to be a young person, what it means to be a young person from Hawaii, going out into the world, coming back, seeing what's here. And we will see you in a little bit. Aloha.
Aloha, I'm Jay Fidell for ThinkTech. For nearly half a century, the Hawaiian Foreign Trade Zone, number 9, has brought the benefits of the Foreign Trade Zone program to Hawaii businesses and entrepreneurs. DBED, the Hawaii Department of Business, Economic Development and Tourism, operates Hawaii's Foreign Trade Zone program. It does so to encourage international business and economic development. The Foreign Trade Zone mission is to increase the amount of international trading activity in Hawaii, thereby providing employment opportunities for the residents of our island state. For more information, see ftz9.org. I'm Jay Fidell of ThinkTech. Mahalo.
Aloha, and welcome back to Pioneer Plaza. ThinkTech Hawaii is streaming live straight to you. And my name is Lindsea Wilbur, the millennial entrepreneur, here with Brittney Taamu Miyashiro, who is the shopkeeper over at Box Jelly, Kaka'ako's co-working space, also Hawaii's first co-working space. She was just telling us a little bit about, what it is to work over there, and the hacker space in the back. But you guys also do events and different kinds of, you have speakers, I think, and what kind of stuff have you done in the past, and what kind of stuff do you have planned for the future?
Well, I was at Box Jelly. The first couple days I was there, I came right when Startup Weekend was going on. So
Startup Weekend Honolulu?
yeah, that was really kind of cool to see. It was a cool introduction to Box Jelly programming for me, and I think that's how a lot of people come across Box Jelly. Besides, tours that we give and co-working the space, there's a lot of people that do come for events. Events being as big as Startup Weekend Honolulu to really small meetups to maybe like meetings. Just general meetings that members host, for whatever purposes their organizations need. But events, I think that's something we're fortunate to be a space for, just people to gather.
Mm-hmm. And so what's another, do you have any events coming up now, or
Events
are you planning anything?
For the rest of 2013, these next few weeks? No events yet, because you never know when one might pop up.
True that.
But in January, we are planning for Jelly Week. Jelly Week is a week-long sort of expression of like what co-working is, celebrated by spaces globally.
Wow, that's great. So it's it's a global event or a global week.
Mm-hmm.
And what's it called again?
Jelly Week.
Jelly Week.
Yeah, so we have plans for that. So theboxjelly.com. You can definitely check out more details as we plan further. And that will be a nice introductory week right before Startup Weekend Honolulu happens.
So Startup Weekend will be in January/February as well, or?
I think so, like that kind of that.
Cool.
That cross section.
And how many people were at your Startup Weekend that you guys hosted? Yeah.
I'm actually not sure of the numbers. I
It was
know
over
that there
100,
was
right?
over 100, probably pushing 2. There was no free space.
Wow. Wow. So totally booked up.
Yeah.
Sounds like there's a lot of eager entrepreneurs
There are.
teaming in Honolulu.
I think people just wanting to contribute. I think also just people wanting a place to go.
People wanting a place to go. Imagine that.
If we do think about space, that is one thing that is different about Hawaii. We do have a lot of places you can be for free. So we're fortunate about
Outside.
that. Beaches, parks, hiking trails, but we do have to start paying for places to be at. Like shopping malls and centers. You're not going to go unless you do
Even a
have money,
bar.
right?
Yeah, even a
Yeah,
bar
even a
for a
bar.
show or something, a coffee
So-
shop. Yeah, exactly. And I totally agree with that actually. They have a little bit, if you're a university student, sometimes they have places over there, but it is really hard sometimes to, just find places where you can go and learn and sort of
Exactly.
be and check things out without having to pay. That's what I love about Powwow, the event that they have in Kaka'ako every February. I also really like
This will be
night
my
market.
first one, my first
really?
powwow. Yeah, I was in Indiana when I first heard about powwow, and I was like, oh, I'm gonna be here though.
And Powwow is it's a organization that a few really good friends started in Kaka'ako, and they paint murals on walls in the neighborhood for about a week, and they bring in about 100 artists from all over the world. And really, it's an opportunity to see art going on, to see local art, to see children, doing murals together, also playing music together, and it's a general good feeling, fun time gathering. I would say celebrating life, culture, art, music. So it's something that I wish was happening all year round, or at least there was something a place to go, like a place to be without having to pay. That's really. I think hit the nail on the head there.
Yeah, I think that is one thing that keeps me going. As far as spending longer hours at Box Jelly, is knowing that the service we do provide and the community that we're trying to build in the space that we offer, it is very open for people to just sort of be and contribute.
Right, exactly. I mean, if you're wanting to have your own desk space, you do have to pay. And I think there's a membership for the hackerspace to pay, but also you can, I've experienced it where, I've been in there, walk in the back, hang out with you guys. And
hanging out too, and we've had a couple, actually there's another event coming up in January. It'll be a new bikes, trends and technologies.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, so kind of featuring the different line of bicycles that are coming out, especially the the foldable bikes, and then also electric gear shifting and all of this different brake systems. But that was an initiative of a friend of one of our members. He's really passionate about bikes and integrating biking into a more general lifestyle, and he understands that he can't really monetize them every bike tune-up he does. He loves giving bike tune-ups for free.
Is this Elliot Van Wee or?
James Smith of Wiki Bikes.
James Smith of Wiki Bikes.
Yeah, Wiki Bikes.
Cool.
Check them out. They'll hook you up with whatever you need as far as bikes. They're really, really awesome about that.
Cool.
But yeah, it was just him wanting to share information and with a more general public, because that's his passion, and he thinks it'll really benefit, or add to contribute to everyone's quality of life.
Yeah.
Is the grander vision.
The grander vision. Well, it's been an absolute pleasure talking with you this afternoon, Brittney. I feel like
Thank you for having me.
really been inspired, and it's we talked a little bit about sometimes feeling slightly discouraged at not having as much as maybe other cities like San Francisco or New York here in Honolulu,
But that's what we're building.
It is. We are building that. And what makes it better, what makes it feel great, is to hang out with friends, to talk story, and to do it together, because that's the fun part about it, is that we get to build this together. So thank you so much for tuning in to Think Tech Hawaii. We are streaming live to you from Pioneer Plaza in downtown Honolulu, and tune in, look it up online, thinktechhawaii.com. Be sure to subscribe. So thank you so much. Have a good afternoon. Aloha.